Marilyn, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Boger.
Here.
Councilmember Plinsky.
Here.
Councilmember Greenlee. Councilmember Shoemaker.
Here.
Councilmember McDaniel.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman.
Here.
Councilmember Lindsay.
Here.
Councilmember Greenlee is out of town this evening. We are going to try and conference him in here towards the end of this meeting or during the council meeting itself, though, to try and do some remote meetings and see how that works. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address council before we get started with our meeting this evening? Harvey?
I would. Harvey Olson, 3903 R Street. The meeting tonight and workshop is to look at city manager, mayor, council form, or city manager and council form. The city manager's qualifications are quite extensive. RCW 35 Big A .13.050, city manager qualifications. He need not be a resident at the time of his or her appointment, but shall reside in the Code City after his or her appointment unless such residence is waived by the council. He or she shall be chosen by the council solely on the basis of his or her executive and administrative qualifications, with special reference to his or her actual experience in or his or her knowledge of accepted practice in respect to the duties of his or her office. No person elected to membership on the council shall be eligible for appointment as city manager until 1 year has elapsed following the expiration of the term for which he or she was elected. Now, qualifications for the mayor. To receive the majority of votes in an election for mayor. That's it. No other qualifications. Duties of the city manager and the mayor are spelled out in RCW. Duties for the mayor is 35 Big A.12.100. Very long, very extensive, would put me beyond the 3-minute time limit. The city manager's duties, this one, 35 Big A.13.080, city manager powers and duties. And again, too long to read both of them in a 3-minute time period. So you folks have a choice. I've read extensively in the papers. The Columbian is for going to a city manager. The co-written guest editorial in the Post Record by 2 council members were for going to a city manager, in depth and extremely well written.
Harvey, I do need you to wrap up, please.
That's what I figured my time would be. I've got a whole ton, about 5 more minutes to say, Mr. Mayor. And by the way, stay out of the sunshine.
Thank you, Harvey. Anyone else that would like to address council? Good evening, Marilyn.
Good evening, sir. Harvey, you got another crack at it down here, so
What?
there's 2 public comments, so you can, it works more.
Oh, that's enough for this time. I'll wait till Saturday.
The subject I want to bring to your attention has nothing to do with city government, except in the sense of looking after our children, most of whom are rotten, horrible little kids, but I care about their welfare. On G Street, and probably lots of other streets in the city, there are kids riding around on their bicycles in the dark with no lighting, no hats, no protection, black clothing, etc. When I was a kid in Toronto, all the bicyclists had to go to the police station, and the policeman there would make sure that you knew how to give a signal as to whether you were going left or right, had a light on your bike, had reflectors, knew the rules of the road, etc. It didn't cost much, but you got a little plate that you put on the back of your saddle. And if your bicycle was stolen, which is a problem here, there's 1 million bicycles stolen in the United States every year, somebody knew who it belonged to. We also now on G Street have kids who are zooming up and down on these motor scooters with no protection whatsoever. If you're going, I mean, they go 20, 30 miles an hour. If you're going that fast and you hit a stone, bingo. I don't think that they should, I think there ought to be some rules about at least wearing some protective stuff, which is not now. I think they ought to be licensed in some respect whatsoever, or supervised, or whatever. But I don't think that young kids should be roaring around town in motorized vehicles with no control whatsoever. And I would like you to be concerned about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Anyone else that would like to address council? Larry, you're going to be number 2.
Jeff Guard, Post Office Box 47, Washougal. Hey, I just want to give you a quick background on, before you start your discussion on administrator or manager of what was done in the past. On the council at the time in 2001, when that came forward as a directive out of our first of the year retreat, actually Rod Morris, Archie Blanchard, and myself formed a committee. And we studied the options, which included going through, of course, all the RCWs, the WACs, and talking to our fellow communities in Clark County. We did make a recommendation to the mayor and the council at that time. Nothing was done. Brought it back up in about, I think it was early 2003 when we brought it up when I was mayor at the time. And we looked at different recruiting firms. We put bids out. We chose the O'Donnell Group. And then we actually budgeted for the position in 2004 as the city administrator. And we selected Nabil Shawa to be that administrator, our first administrator. So there is a background. There's been a study done. I looked all over for my papers over the weekend to today, and I think there are a batch of those that I left here when I left office in 2005 because I figured it's archival history for the city. It's not mine. So if it's back there, great. If not, oops. I'm going to recommend that you form another group to take a look at that, but this time have a couple people from the council, a couple people from the community, and a facilitator. And I'm stepping up right now and saying I would love to facilitate that. I could stay completely neutral and professionally trained in how to do that, so I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Jeff. Larry?
My name's Larry White, and I live at 2327 North O Street. I've been reading in the paper, Post Record, etc., Columbian, about the proposed change of way we govern this city. And I'd like to hear a lot more, and I'm here to hear more about it. But initially, I may change my mind, but initially my feeling is that it's not the right thing to do. And my reasons are the reasons that were stated against having our current type of government are reasons why I like it. One of the things things that was noted was stability and lack of stability and change of direction. I think that's a good thing. I think it's good for this community to be able to change direction whenever they want to. And if it's changing mayor every 4 years, that's okay. I think it's okay that we've only had one mayor reelected. I'm hoping currently that the current mayor is reelected. It's my personal opinion. But I think it's a good thing to have the opportunity to change the direction the community is headed. No reflection on the sitting council as it is, but There was a mention of embarrassment by the city leaders, which should include also there has been embarrassments. I've been in the community 20 years by council members that have embarrassed the community. So if we went to a council type of committee-run government, I could say that could be similar to, in my thinking, and I'm going to learn more, so I may change my mind. But right away I think of what if we did not have the balance of power with executive branch in the United States and Congress and Senate and the judicial system? If we remove the president and the executive branch and the veto power and the vice president from government, our country right now would be run by the Senate and the Congress of the United States, and nothing would get accomplished. We couldn't pass a budget. We couldn't meet our payrolls. We couldn't move forward. We would be in one place. And so I want to hear a lot more, and before I can feel like I could support any kind of change in our current system. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Mr. Levesque.
Appreciate the table. Thank you. For the record, Joel Levesque, 2682 Northwest Norwood Street, Camas. I've been here before. You know I've been here before. One of the best things that come out of the Post-Record recently was you and somebody else, McDaniel, coming up with the suggestion of changing what's going on around here. There's a lot of bad things going on in this community. I don't want to comment too much on it right now. But you guys have all kinds of committees, you have all kinds of meetings, you have all kinds of stuff. I'm going to show you my workshop. I'll be back when these other people get through talking. This is only part of what I do. This is a solution to the national foreclosure problem. This is only part of it. Each one of these pages represents about 2 hours' work at the library. The reason I'm doing that is if the government has any solution that's better than what I've got in mind, I'd like to know about it, and that way I'll drop what I'm doing. So far, I haven't received any cooperation from QUITA or from the government, but the government is trying to help me right now. Congressman Herrera is trying to help me. Ann Rivers is trying to help me. Washington State University is trying to help me. Hopefully, I'm going to try to get the Apple company to work with me on this. It's a big idea. It's a very big idea, but it makes sense. One of my main concerns here, I was here a few weeks ago talking about prayers before you start a meeting. Some guy in the newspaper started talking. He goes, that religious talk again. I don't talk religion. I talk about God. And I've seen people come up here saying, bragging how they're atheists. Fine, they have a right to say whatever they want. One simple question from you guys, just ask them simple, can they prove that God does not exist? Because I can. It cost me $15 million to prove that. Now, I've got other things to say about what's going on in the government right here, but I'd rather hear what these people have to say, because I want to make them aware of stuff that's going on that they don't know about. Some of you guys don't even know about. And the newspapers have a lot to do with this because they're not fulfilling their responsibilities. A newspaper is supposed to report the news. And with the news comes the truth, and with the truth comes freedom. But when a newspaper refuses to print the news and the people don't know about what's going on, it's not a free country anymore. So the newspapers are as guilty as some of the people that are trying to screw things up around here. Another thing that I'm running into is a lot of people are in love with their lifestyle out here. You know what? So am I. The quality of life comes from the river. It comes from the Columbia Gorge. It comes from Mount Hood. Where'd that come from? They act like they own it. Hey, I wanted to come up here and generate a lot of for the economy, jobs, hundreds of millions of dollars I could have done in this community. And I'll talk about that one later. And I'll give you each a copy of a letter that I sent along with some other things. I tried to do a lot of good here, and what's going on in this government is not so much the government, the community. Camas has been pretty good. You guys, and as far as Sean Garr is concerned, I love the guy. I trade haircuts with him if he still had the same hair. As far as the mayor goes, I wouldn't take him away. He's a good guy. But that form of government's pretty good. A little more balance we've got, I think the better off we're going to be. Anyhow, I'll be back, but I'll show you some other stuff that you don't know about.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else that would like to address council? Anyone else that would like to address council? Won't be your last time this evening, hopefully. Okay, getting into new business. Steve, do you want to kick us off on our discussions this evening?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Council, as you know, the primary topic for our work session this evening is the form of government, and as we discussed at your last meeting, I was going to seek to get staff from MRSC, the Municipal Research and Services Center, to join us so that they could present information that they've collected over the years on this topic and information that they've served other communities with as communities have considered this question. I was concerned about the short notice, and indeed the short notice was a problem for the staff at MRSC. They weren't able to have somebody here on 2 weeks' notice. However, we have Lloyd Halverson here, who's a retired city administrator and a former city manager. He is here informally on behalf of MRSC. He is here with their blessing, and he's here this evening basically to present a presentation that MRSC has kind of on the books, ready to go for communities. And so with that, I invite Lloyd to come up, and he's going to present MRSC's information for you.
Thank you, David. Mr. Mayor, Council, members of the audience, I'm sorry if I turn my back to you. By way of very brief introduction, I'd note that I've spent, now retired after 30 years as a city manager or city administrator. I worked only for 2 cities. I worked for 6 mayors, all of them good, each of them different. 3 cities, beg your pardon.
What are those cities, Lloyd?
Independence, Oregon, Camas, Washington, and Washougal, Washington. And
That's right, you were temporary.
Temporary over here. And I got recounting it, and it was councils from 16 election cycles. So that's the background, and here we go to the slideshow. As noted, this is from the Municipal Research and Services Organization of the state of Washington. They are broadly experienced, and you'll find that their presentation, I believe, is rather objective and comparative and doesn't try to draw conclusions. So the first slide provides us with the outline of the organizational chart and how it works under the mayor-council form. And I believe many of you are quite familiar with this, and I apologize if any of this is going over what you already very, very well know, but perhaps this is also for the sake of the full group here this evening. This is the mayor-council plan with the city administrator, wherein the mayor is in the chief executive position, and he can appoint a city administrator who then has as broad or narrow duties as the mayor may wish. Under the council manager form, the council directly by majority vote, or presumably more than just a majority, would appoint a city manager, and then if necessary can remove the same person. And under state statute and a variety of custom, that person appoints and directs the department heads, and that's a very clear setup. This chart is a bit busy. However, it has, I think, a very good discussion of the comparison and contrast between the two forms. You'll note that, of course, the legislative authority in both forms stays with the council. The difference is at the the executive authority is vested with the mayor or with the manager in the two respective forms. It goes through the selection and appointment of the two chief executives, the tenure. I'd like to comment that with respect to tenure, although it indicates indefinite, managers serve at the pleasure of a majority of the council, and one hears expressions of how often they change, and of course that depends on the community and the individuals and their ambitions and how well their councils like them. I think typically, on average, the duration is somewhere in the 4, 5, or 6 year period of time. I think personally, as a 24-year city administrator, I'm a bit of an aberration.
Lloyd, could I ask you a question about that?
Please.
That's, the cities I've worked for, it's been longer than that.
Mm-hmm.
And also, when there's a change in manager, they never happen in connection with an election. It was just, the manager wanted to move on, the manager lost confidence in the council, the manager lost the confidence of the council, but it wasn't after some kind of election turnover.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is to you is, what's your experience with that? Is the city managers usually turn over in connection with an election, in the aftermath of an election, or do you think it's just something happens in the midterm?
I think it is as varied as the individuals and the communities, and there's a huge scatter of initiating events. That's my answer to your question.
Because I can't think of a situation where a city manager was removed right after an election.
I may have the benefit or the unbenefit of anecdotally having heard from a lot of places, and sometimes the experience is so negative that in turn a community has changed form of government in the opposite direction that you are contemplating. Ferndale comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see some of that further in the
That's
other
the only
slides.
one, by the way, in the state.
This chart, I think, is very worthy of your detailed attention as you have time, because it really describes it quite, in my opinion, quite clearly. My experience is that the two forms, in some cases, can almost blend into a hybrid where a city administrator, with the full confidence of his mayor or her mayor and council, can be as active as the mayor wants them to. Policy implementation is, I think this is really clear and rather self-explanatory. In the next slide, one sees the distribution of the two different forms over the populations here in the state of Washington. I think Washington is more evenly split between council manager on the one hand and strong mayor on the other hand than some of the other states. As an example, across the river, the council manager form is almost universal. I think that there are 4 exceptions on the Oregon side, and that's all. If you like history, it was a model for local government in the 20s. It came out of the University of Oregon and it just swept the state very rapidly, the council manager form. I think that what you see in this chart, where there is a tendency of the largest cities to be strong mayor and the medium-sized ones to be more inclined towards the council manager form, I think that that is accurate and probably consistent with national trends as well. On the next slide, and I am moving quickly, and I think at the end, maybe we handle questions that you may have where we can help after you have the whole context. There have been a number of cities which have incorporated since 1970, and this lists the ones that went to the council manager form. You see a huge grouping in the Puget Sound area, and spoken history of that, or the oral history is, this is a number of basically suburban communities that no longer wanted to be part of the county and wanted to determine more of their own destinies. That's hearsay on my part, but I think it holds up. Next slide shows that Liberty Lake incorporated under the mayor-council form. And of course, just as you are studying, some communities have changed their form. These are ones which changed from the mayor-council to the council-manager form since 1970. Then in the next slide, you see the ones which have changed from council-manager to the mayor-council form.
Lloyd, I misspoke. I thought there was, when I said one city, I'd switched that way. I was confusing. It was initially incorporating. Liberty Lake was the one city that initially incorporated under strong mayor.
Uh-huh.
It's a small city, less than 5,000 at the time of incorporation. And this is kind of a mixture of cities. Generally not the size of Washougal, either smaller or larger.
And my observation is every one of these, if you really wanted to look into it, is a story and a history of its own. Isn't that one of the beauties of American local government, is that local government fits local conditions? The most unique and, in my opinion, archaic form was the commission form, and we see that that has basically disappeared from the state of Washington.
But not Portland.
Isn't that interesting? But not Portland, exactly. Now, on the next slide is a good listing of common issues, and you will hear, I predict you will hear echoes of this just spontaneously and organically from your own community. The pro and con arguments have to do with these listed things, and there may well be more. MRSC, we want to reiterate what David said, and that is they don't take a position on all of this. What they're listing here are arguments for and against which they have frequently heard, as opposed to MRSC really thinks that item A is the most common issue. The responsiveness and accountability, I think you've heard some discussion of that already, and I think people will have lively opinions about that. Professional management, which form provides the best quality of professional management, and I think this is a more live issue in the smaller communities that rely on the strong mayor system without the benefit of any city administrator. The appropriate role of politics and administration. It is noteworthy that in the code of ethics for people in our profession, we are forbidden to engage in local politics, including the matters of the election of the people that we work for. That is a very, very strong part of the ethics of the occupation. There's the item about which is more effective and which is more efficient, and then which form promotes more community harmony and moderates the amount of divisiveness or divisiveness within the community. My fearless prediction is you will hear a variety of these discussion points as you go through this process. Once again, in the mayor-council form, the mayor serves as the city's chief administrative officer. The council, of course, serves as the legislative body. The council adopts the policies. The mayor carries them out. The mayor presides over the council meeting, does not vote except in limited cases of ties, as you well know. And again, in many mayor-council cities, a professional administrator is hired to assist the mayor with administrative duties. That's a very common practice within the state. And in that manner, the cities gain the benefits of professional management, and that allows mayors, should they wish, to focus on policy development, political leadership, and remembering that mayors are typically part-time persons with other business and professional interests. It allows them to better focus on those matters as well. Other cited advantages of the mayor-council form is it's the most familiar, it's patterned after our national and state governments, the separation of powers is very clear, there are checks and balances, and the council has its duties and prerogatives, and the mayor has his. The
Well, can I
separation
ask
of
you a
powers
question?
is good, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
That's okay.
in your experience as city administrator in Camas, how often was an ordinance vetoed? Your time there, can you give me an ever?
Offhand, I do not remember the veto of a single ordinance.
Mhm.
A related question, nor do I recall the rejection of a single mayoral appointment.
You anticipated my second question. Okay, thank you.
We're supposed to be intuitive. Thank you for the laugh. The separation of powers is a good thing, and it does note that it has both a healthy independence and it has a creative tension to it. Other advantages that MRSC has frequently heard is that, I think this is very clear, that by electing rather than appointing the chief official, the political leadership is very clear, and that enhances the political leadership of the mayor position. The city has a political spokesperson who has very high visibility and is sought out at the grocery store and everywhere else. Some would say that having an elected mayor provides a higher standing and greater voice in regional affairs for the city. The mayor is vested with the veto powers, and if, because of other demands on the mayor's time, focus, and energy, and so on, that creates a deficit in the administrative skill sets, that can be remedied by the appointment of a city administrator. The negatives or the contrary points would be that the office of the mayor gives too much power and authority to one person. It allows the incumbent to make a great number of decisions based largely, this is an argument, based largely on political considerations, and there are certainly cases where the office is used to further personal political objectives. And in the interest of balance, I would say that it is not unknown that city administrators who are ambitious and talented will use a position in one city to build a career, and that's part of a wider career path. So that's maybe a mirror image. And then, as I think was referred to obliquely earlier, the qualities needed to win an election are not the same qualities necessarily that are needed to manage a modern city. Other contrary points would be that if an elected mayor proves to be incompetent or worse, he or she can't be removed until the end of their term or after an expensive, divisive recall election. And as I think a careful examination of the recall provisions in our state would show that it is intentionally a very difficult process. And I chose the words in that sentence. It is intentionally a very difficult, time-consuming, and expensive process. A separately elected mayor can resist or ignore a request from the councils. The mayor can attempt, and I'm sure this has happened some places, to isolate the council by not providing information and access as council members might wish. So let's move to just a description then of the council manager form. In that form, the elected city council is responsible for policy making. As you know, the manager is appointed by the council and is responsible very clearly for the administration. Typically, the managers provide policy advice, and I think that that's a correct word, and they handle the daily operations. State law prohibits the council from interfering with the day-to-day administration. It is tried sometimes, but it's certainly a clear prohibition.
There's no such prohibition for the mayor interfering with the city administrator, is there?
No.
Because I worked for a city in California that switched systems to strong mayor, and they actually had a provision that prohibited the strong mayor from interfering with the administrator's administration, even though he was his direct employee. I thought it was a little strange. I don't know how it worked in practice, but there's nothing in state law that would prohibit the mayor from
To my knowledge,
going
there
over the
is nothing,
administrators.
and as a practical matter, people know who they work for. Excellent question, and what a paradox in California
That's
law.
Fresno. They do strange things there.
The council manager form, the manager again is directly accountable to the council, and the mayor presides at meetings and has a variety of other duties. When I served in a clear council manager form, personally, I always regarded the mayor as the first among equals, and he showed particular interest and was very helpful. The advantages of the council manager form: administration of city business is, in MRSC's view, removed from politics. The efficiency, in the testimony MRSC reports, it is removed from politics. Efficiency is one of the cardinal beliefs of city administrators, city managers. To further go through the pros on this, since the managers are appointed rather than elected, one can give greater attention to what their skill sets and experiences are in a professional management role as opposed to a electoral system or setting. They're typically, and this would hold up in a study of compensation across the state, they're typically compensated as full-time professionals, and that is to say that's different and higher than mayors in the former compensated, and therefore it attracts people who want to do that for their career. The recruitment scenario can be very similar to the city administrator position, in fact, virtually indistinguishable. It's noteworthy that in our professional organization called the Washington City Management Association, there are city administrators, city managers, county administrators, city supervisor from Pullman. There are a whole variety of titles, and the group gets along fine and has all of those different kinds of people, and we treat one another as colleagues and peers.
Why does, I hate to keep asking these questions, but Mr. Olson brought up the RCW requirements that a city manager have certain professional qualifications.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a similar requirement for city administrators?
No.
No, I was going to answer. Okay.
Not that I know of, although as a practical matter, I think city administrator job descriptions and professional recruitments indicate the same skill sets and backgrounds and experiences as managers. My observation is, in many ways, they're indistinguishable. But the incumbents should be very sensitive to which form they work in. Since the manager serves at the pleasure of the council without a definite term, he or she can be removed at any time, limiting the danger of abuse of authority. Now, in a common place way to say it, managers, you can just fire them on the spot, and that's fairly easy. I think that that's frankly erroneous. Typically, managers or administrators have contracts, and terminating the chief executive or the administrator can be organizational turmoil for a period of time. And so I don't think that it's quite as easy as, well, these are just employees, and if you don't like it, you just get rid of them. The negatives on the council manager form, the city manager form gives too much power to one person. The city manager, even if the person's a professional manager, they're often chosen from outside of the community. They don't know community values. They don't necessarily, they're too distant. They can be too isolated. The councils tend to give too much authority and responsibility to the managers, and the managers are not directly accountable to the people.
Is a city administrator directly accountable to people?
No. How about that for a crisp, short answer?
Yeah. If I give you the impression I'm cross-examining you, I'm sorry.
I think you've pretty much given that impression.
Mr. Counselor, 1,100 to 1,200 council meetings, I'm okay. And to just conclude the presentation, there's some more negatives about this. The council manager form, some would say, makes it too much like a business corporation that's not suitable in managing a community's needs. The managers cost too much. Local people could handle the job for less. And I think that in your situation where you have a city administrator, cost is not a big differential one way or the other. Citizens can be confused about who is in charge. I think that's a very valid report. And managers leave. For all sorts of reasons. That concludes the MRSC presentation. I think we've tried to do that in an objective way that MRSC would be proud of. In this matter, I think they regard themselves as Switzerland.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Thank you very much.
Very good, Lloyd.
Questions from council members? You're not going to leave anywhere soon, are you?
Beg your pardon?
You're not going to leave anywhere soon, are you? The room?
No. I take that as a suggestion that I stick around.
See if anything comes up by the time we get done this evening.
Thank you very much.
Lloyd, thank you.
Thank you.
Did we cover it?
Yes, thank you very much.
Mr. Ganley, good evening.
Good evening.
Certainly thank
Thank
you
you.
for being here as well.
Well, this is interesting. And, well, I had to go do some research. I'm a teacher. I teach in the Battleground School District. I taught 29 years at Battleground High School, taught CWP, Contemporary World Problems, civics, and global topics. I now teach at the Alternative High School, some of you, And I taught government there for a while. Now I'm into world history and U.S. history. So government's always been my passion. I grew up in it. My dad was involved in a volunteer fire department, was a chief in a fire district up in King County. My mother ran for water commissioner. And so I always grew up campaigning for their fire stations or water rates or something on our school districts. So
Bill, for those in the audience that aren't familiar with Bill, Bill is a city council member out in the city of Battleground, former mayor.
Former mayor,
In
under the city
Battleground.
manager, form of government.
Okay.
And-
And Bill was infinitely involved in Battleground's transition from a strong mayor form of government without an administrator to a city manager council form of government. So we've asked him to be here this evening as well to kind of talk us through some of your experience.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. And it's really unique. I agree with Lloyd, everything he has said, that you've really got to take a look at it. So what I've done, I've had to go back, I had to file this box. I got married 3 years ago and had things in boxes, so I'm out looking at, and really, a lot of memories came back. And I'll just show a few of these. This is one for the committee for responsible government, and I was on that committee, chaired it. This is from the secretary, Franda Lavin, one of our citizens who was really involved. And these are the original notes and some of the stuff, and I'm reading through this, and wow, that's really interesting. So I got a few things from that, and this is just the research I did, just like I've heard citizens out here looking at it. And that's what you really have to do. You gotta take some time and look at it. And what was going on at Battleground, I had to find this notebook. And I say this to a lot of people that come to Battleground. I remember the meeting we came to, and the water rates, 15% increase for water rates. Well, that's a small one.
Sounds familiar.
Then came this one, for 1 year, 47% for sewer. Wow, talk about fill the council chambers. You know, this gets people excited. I really think crisis really makes people look and examine your values, what you're doing, and then you have to find what fits you. So I like the city manager. The city administrator works for Battleground. It's been successful, but this to me was the catalyst.
Bill, is that why it's in a black binder?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. And then I found articles, so I made up some handouts because it's for some reading, and I brought some for extra. I don't have enough for everyone here. I'll give one to the clerk, and I could go through this a little bit, but I won't tell. It's hard. It could take me an hour. I know I was kind of timing myself to 15 minutes, and then I will two copies or just one? Just one. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
And yeah, I will. And I know I have the reporter here, and I will get two reporters, okay? I will give that. So I have my number, and what I started, and this goes chronologically, and if you look at the first, this is from the Columbian, Jeff Mize, who is now a PIO for the county, and you can talk to him. If anybody knows Jeff Mize through the county, you may want to talk to him. He came out a lot. And the city of brotherly love, it's not. And kind of explain some of the issues where we had a strong mayor who was elected. It kind of reminds me of what's going on today if you're following the city of Pacific up in the Puget Sound area and what's going on there. They're having a recall election. Just what Lloyd, you did perfect description and right on. And it usually takes something. If the city's small, and, this was my first argument. This was my notes from 1996 when I was going to debate. And I found these notes. I can use this a lot. What do you judge it on? And at first, 1912 in Sumter, South Carolina, and this was with the recall referendum initiative, and the city manager was developed to, we had the big city bosses, Tammany Hall, and they wanted to bring that, stood for political favors and political reasons, and, Chicago and areas like that. What can we do to bring a better form of government and run it more like a business? And sometimes that's a problem. But if you take a look at cities, what I examined, older cities tend to like the city administrator. If you go up to the Seattle area, you have Renton and Bellevue. I grew up in the Puget Sound area. There's a new city called Newcastle. I grew up there, and actually was involved when I was in college in setting up the city of Newport Hills. But then Bellevue annexed part of the city, then they had to go, they incorporated it as Newport Hills and then changed it to Newcastle. So I was involved in that in the original, then moved down here. Renton and Bellevue. Bellevue has a city manager. Renton has a city administrator, strong mayor, but Renton's the old mining town, and Bellevue in the 1950s and 60s, and that's, I grew up, I used to ride my bike to downtown Bellevue, was 5,000 people incorporated in the 1950s, where Renton was in the late 1800s. The other one to compare is Kirkland and Redmond. Same thing, city manager, strong mayor, city administrator. So you kind of get, it works in both places, but a lot of it is how the city was developed, where they're at. You gotta look at the history and the problems. I looked at the city manager, corporate principles, ideals, efficiencies, economy, neutrality, I think is really important. Nonpartisanship, especially at the local level. I'm really, really in favor of that. And really divide the policymakers from the administration. And I think that's really important. To evaluate your growth. If you have rapid growth, you may want to be looking at the city manager. Management, your history. Big cities, yeah, you're correct. They tend to have the big city powers, except for Portland. The only other city that's kept the commission form of government is Shelton. That is the only one that's kept it. You were
The
making
worst
this
form
big
of
go.
government ever devised.
Yes, and look at Portland.
Yeah.
And 5 to 10,000 is the population. They start looking, if you have a fast growth rate, but 5 to 10,000, because it does cost money. And rural versus, for like police, most popular is probably the mayor. What more rural you get, the city administrator is, because I think you don't see a lot, if you go to eastern Washington and some of the areas, you don't see a lot of growth. Some of the cities' populations have stayed very stable, and it could be because of industry or by farming communities. Infrastructure issues, labor problems, and economic development. So I can go through this real quick. Some of the same charts, the populous cities, and this is, I think, nationwide. Most of the new cities are going to the city manager, and that's what you see. The cities incorporated later, they've gone to it. As they get bigger, they tend to look at, yes, you have a larger pool for the mayor, and if you have a very good city administrator, and look at cities by the non-chartered code cities, that Battleground, Washougal, and I believe Camas is too, but some of the charter cities have actually written into their charters how the city administrator, there's more rules and powers given to them. Next, same thing that you saw, very similar to the Columbian editorial, Battleground needs governmental reforms. That was the Battleground to Huddle. That was probably, my name's down there somewhere in the bottom where we met and we started to organize. Two different ways to put it forward is one is by petition, difficult to do. It takes to go out and gather petitions, or two is to do it by majority vote of the council. Put it to the vote. And I've always been a proponent of putting it to the vote of the people. Any type of topic that comes forward. Next, city manager for Battleground. City managers will decide soon. And you can look at that because you're going to probably see some of the same arguments made. Vote on the issue. Showdown in Battleground, which kind of is like 3 pages long. And why should I vote for a city manager? Why I should not? And you'll hear the disagreements. Then there's a picture of me here on this one. This is a little different.
Is there anybody that can attest to that?
Yeah, I look younger. My wife was saying that. So, Battleground City seeks peace treaty. So one, we had this confrontation going on between the mayor and council. We had sewer rates. Talking to the city attorney, at one time, 1995, I believe, we had 1,000 new lots come in. And, we didn't have the impact fees, no parks whatsoever. It's just the area north where I live. And people, where's our parks? What's going on? Where's the street lights? Where's the planning? So we really needed someone to help us. We did not have a city administrator at that time. We had a strong mayor. We offered to the mayor. When I was on council, I'm the only councilor that still remains that I served under the strong mayor. And we offered the city administrator position, and no, he was going to run things. And that kind of, was we had to do something. And talking to other council, it was 6-1, one opposed, going to the vote. He supported the mayor. He thought he was going to run for mayor next time and thought he could do things better. Here's the statement 4, and I can talk about the campaign, and you got to separate yourself from the council once you leave. It's got to be a separate issue when you form the groups, if you want to campaign for it or against it. Here's the ad, and it's really funny because when I was looking through it, that's the ad that we ran in the paper. and Franda put these things out, and I hadn't looked at this. See, we had color. I mean, this was back in the old days. And we did some teasers. We did a flyer. We had teasers early, vote, you know, just early on. This was our teaser, and then trying to get things out. Doorbelling, and that tells all that. Vote yes. And here's a proposition put forward. Here's the Clark County Voters Guide for pro and against. My name's on that for the pro side. I put one, City of SeaTac. Here's the City of SeaTac. I got this from the county, just doing a little research back at this time. They went when they originally incorporated, but then they wanted to go back, and this was, they voted it down. Federal Way, they had a lot of issues with police. They incorporated, but they did not have a water and sewer system, and they had to raise their utility taxes by a vote to keep their police department. Issues usually arise to go one way or the other. But that's City of SeaTac. Battle, here's more articles, and I'll let you read that. I'm going to try to get to the end. The votes, what happened, we was 65% yes, no contest in Battleground. There's one of Bob Brown waving a sign on the corners. We had people involved in that. He was a council member at the time, too. Here's the utility rates, and when we first came in, the city manager, we looked at this, and here's the rates, and what actually happened with the city manager, we were, you know, it cut it in half. He was able to come in, and that's what you really need. That's what I really like, is a conservative business model, especially when we have a city that has a full-service city versus a contract city. And a lot of the cities in California, and I did a little reading in there, a lot of them are contract cities, which they contract fire, police, everything basically they contract out, except for the planning and management, maybe some parks. But we're a full-service city. And then the last one by Jeff Mize, Battleground Gets More Peaceful. I will tell you, the first city, two of our former city managers, they do move up, and Dave Mercier went to the city of Spokane Valley. And now is at Vancouver, and Eric Holmes is our city manager, our second one. We use an interim, Stan McNutt, and I don't know if it's Dave Mercier, and I was the first mayor, and I remember I was saying something to him, and I said, you know, problem solved. And he goes, nope. He says, problems, you're still gonna have problems. You're still gonna have them. It's how you solve them. And what we're going to do, we're going to develop plans, everything. And there'll be plans in public works and fire and police and planning. You can name it. Garbage collection, we'll take a look at it. We're going to give it a plan. And that's, we spent a lot of time. We looked at our legacy plans, and that was our development, like how much parks and street lights and cul-de-sacs and how it was going to be designed, and street trees, which was a real controversial one. We looked at the planning, and there could be others I could talk about, but it's worked really well for Battleground. One of the things somebody asked me, I looked at somebody, Representative Pike, and she was out of Battleground, one of their townhouses, and she was talking about, you know, how the lowest tax rate in Clark County is some other city. I said, no, Battleground. I said, Battleground? I said, yeah, and I do this, I like digging and doing statistics and looking at analysis. And I've done your city, because I do them all. And I just did it. And what I do is I take a base rate, and for example, Richfield's $1.22, Battleground's $1.98. Washougal's $3.10. But then I said, you know what? You have to look at all the special districts, because local government, I think it's the most important. I served on the Transportation Improvement Board when I was over in the Tri-Cities, and they have beautiful parks. And I said, you know, man, it's over here, you got nice parks. He said, we vote for them. I said, what's the difference? And I mean, you're conservative over here. This is, you know, the Cascade Curtain. He says, you know, we keep our money here. You know, we do a good job. People can evaluate. You know, if you send it to Olympia, look at what problems we're having right now, possible state shutdown, look at the federal government. But you know what? And they have the city manager in Richland and Kennewick. And it works there, and they're conservative. And I know you have the federal government there too, but they have really nice parks. And so we have a lot of special districts. So I took the library and Fire District 13, 12, EMS for East County, and bonds. And what I came out when I did the total in ports, you guys have a port, Battleground does not, and that's really key, economic development. So I did all the local, and Battleground's base came out to $248 per thousand. The highest, which is temporary because Yakal put a $1 surcharge, and they're at $5.25. They will be a little bit lower. But the highest rate, without any surcharge, happens to be Salmon Creek in unincorporated Clark County. because they have the Three Creeks Library, they have Fire District 6, they have an EMS levy, they're in the port, so you have all these different things. So we came out under half. So that's really probably when Battleground started, we had highest sewer rates in the state, highest water rates in the states, had one of the highest property taxes. And we cut those in half over time. And lots with growth, but with impact fees, paying off our bonds, being very conservative, contracting out some of the service we contract for fire service with Clark County Fire and Rescue, looking at all those different things. I think we get a pretty good deal. We have some utility rates, we do, and you have to compare and look at each city. And I can give you, I don't have any other, but I can hand this, and I did make a mistake on the EMS for East County when I added this up. So, but it's what you want to take a look at, and it does change over time. In Battleground, we've had 5 city managers. We had 1 city manager that was removed, and I think that was that's how the system works. Issues come up, and you're able to change that management with 4 votes. And with me tonight is Alex Reinhold, also a council member, and came up during this time and got involved in our government and can remember some of the same things. There was a lot of change. So I'll open it up to questions. I have some extra copies here I will give to people before I leave. So, and it works. Whatever system works for you. I'm not here to, the city manager worked really well for Battleground. It was the right time, right place, and it worked well. So, Connie Jo?
Do you see at the time of the change that you made, was it during a big boom time?
Yes.
Like, we have to have an administrator now, we're too big now? Whereas Washougal already we have an administrator, we have a mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Can you compare the difference where we're in a different place than you were at?
That's correct. We're probably around 5,000 people, and that's when, if you look at my notes, between 5,000 and 10,000, and we were growing rapidly. Also, things have changed by state law and RCWs. The whole council was put up for election, and so I didn't read that closely, and I'll admit I made mistakes. One, I thought, well, the council stays and the mayor's gone right away. Mayor doesn't leave right away. The mayor stays until election of the new council, which you have to get into the election cycle of the county auditor's office and the state. So we had to go to so after the vote, yes, there was about 6 months where the mayor was still in power until the new council came on.
How'd that work?
It was a little touchy. The mayor did agree to hire a interim city administrator, and that was Stan McNutt, who was our interim city manager. So he adjusted right in. All council members were put up for election. So everybody was up, and only 2 survived. I was one of them. And some decided not to run. I can't remember the whole story, but it was interesting. Now with state law, the council and mayor stay in place until the next election, I believe. And that makes it easier, so you can transfer the city administrator right into the city manager. So you don't have the controversy of an election. We went through the election, and it was really interesting. People got involved. I mean, we had new people that ran for office, and it was a breath of fresh air. And I spent a lot of time. This took about probably a year and a half of my time, and it was a lot of research. A lot of time gathering this information, a lot of reading, and you have to present it to the people, and there will be people that will oppose it. And just like Lloyd said, there's pros and cons to it. We were a little bit smaller. We did not have a city administrator, and we had a real need for it at that time, correct?
So when all 7 city councilors went up for election, what did you do at the next election cycle? Did they all come up again, or did it?
Yeah, the ones that had the most votes, the top 4 had 4-year terms, and the bottom 3 had just 2-year terms.
Okay.
And we actually went another 6 months. So I served for 4 years and 6 months roughly, or 8 months roughly. But it was very. I could write a paper on this. It would be a great master thesis to take a look at the history of Battleground, and Washougal has your history, and you put it together, and you'll know when the time is right or not right. You weigh the issues, and the more I read about it, and you take a look, and I learned something new tonight from Lloyd, is that Oregon is so pro city manager, And I took Councilmember Williams, George Williams, we went all over, and I had we went to Gladstone and Happy Valley and Sandy, and a good one for Battleground, I think a good one for Washougal to compare with is the city of Sherwood on the way Highway 18. It's about the same size, same growth, same issues. We went out there and just went to the city halls and gathered information and talked to people. And so it just wasn't, book work. It's talking to people, getting the oral history. Why did they do it? What was good? What was bad? What was ugly? There's no such thing as a perfect. Even for me, looking at the city manager form of government, there's things that we could have done better, and we're still dealing with some of those issues. But 7 council members. It's that you're the board members. Your mayor is the president of the board. He represents all 6 other members, and sometimes that is a difficulty because our mayor is different. And I used to say we're a weak mayor form of government because you're not involved in finances. You're not involved in the hiring and firing of people. You got to leave that to the city manager. And when you get in smaller towns, that's when you don't have a lot of growth. That's where the strong mayor and probably city administrator works better on that. Mm-hmm. So it was time to bring those principles of business, and then your CEO is your city manager. And just like the board, and I think this is where it came from, Martin Corporation, that when it was time for a change, like Men's Warehouse, the guy's gone, and the things move and things change, and pennies. And in Battleground, we really needed, because we were a full-service city, and we needed that. The water rates and sewer rates and senior citizens, the impact on them, our road system. I can just go on, and we really needed to get a handle on it. And this really, the change of form of government, is good. I think it's working for us. And when you get bigger, it may switch back. And if you slow down, but right now, most of for us, the city manager has been good. We've had our issues. It's not going to be a panacea. You're still going to work. You're still going to have problems. But the transition is a lot easier today because you could keep your city administrator and your council. And then what would happen at the next election, I believe the mayor just becomes like a council member, then you go from 8 to 7 on your vote there. So we had to go through the tough, it was tough because then you had to run a campaign.
So you would make a link with Battleground success in keeping tax rates and utility rates low to the city manager system? I
really do. It was scary. We had everything from stormwater problems, drainage ditches. We had a lot of pump stations, but the sewer rates, 47%. And then we had a moratorium on sewer. We went into a moratorium on water. We were stopping growth. We had a mayor former mayor who was voted out of office, had gone to jail concerning city business. When the city manager interim came on, found money in the utility desk drawer. We had arrests made of the clerk and the utility clerk after the city manager came on. A lot of issues. I mean, we had to do some things drastically, and the city manager brought the stability, and people want it run like a business. I do. The mayor, sometimes, I even look at Vancouver, Mayor Levitt is not a strong mayor. He has equal power, and that was in the Columbian editorial. I totally agree with that. And it's run like a business.
Bill, a follow-up to Brent's question, though. Would it, in your experience, would it have mattered whether it was a city manager or a city administrator that was going in and providing that professional management of the city that allowed you to start doing the planning and doing the infrastructure changes and the changes in your budget and that type of stuff, going from the part-time mayor who was not a manager,
right,
to someone who professional?
And that's what you have to weigh. And you're right, correct. If we offered the city administrator, I was reading some of the articles here, and that I can remember council and said no, he did not think, because Battleground was relatively small. When I first moved, there was 2,700 people. It didn't grow very fast because of the sewer. There was a moratorium, and it took a long time to get the sewers into Battleground. But you're right. It fits, and you take a look at the history of Washougal, and where you have a city administrator, and Lloyd has done an outstanding job. He has a history in Camas, and his presentations to the Transportation Improvement Board were outstanding, and working with all the regional boards. He represented the Camas well, and they have a long history. And and look, on what happened up on that hill is an example for others to follow.
One thing I don't want folks taking away is the idea that simply moving from a city administrator and a mayor to a city manager, all of a sudden we're gonna drop tax rates by 50%.
No.
We're gonna do
No, of
all of
course
that
not.
No, of course
because of the
No.
presentation that's here.
No.
A lot of that professional
Very
management has
different.
already happened. We did
Right.
massive changes even 3 years ago
Right.
to get some more.
But
under
this
control.
is, a lot of times when you take a look at the rates and stuff, and the city administrator, and you can look at any, and usually in the smaller cities, that they've, city administrators move on. I mean, the mayor comes in, you have a new mayor, and things change. And it can happen with the council.
We're not.
And,
Did you
Finish your thought, and then I have a
no,
question.
Sorry, did you consider the city administrator system instead of, in lieu of doing the, I know you mentioned that you offered the city administrator position to the mayor. Was he just gonna resign as mayor and then become city administrator? Was that the idea?
no,
Or are you
no.
just gonna pay him more?
No, he was a strong mayor. He just was elected, and he had 2 more years. Well, it just kind of like up in Pacific where the mayor came in and started to, personnel issues, financial issues, and because the city administrator does work for the mayor, the one person, where the manager works for all 7. And that's where you have to have, instead of one person, who you elect could cause that change. And it could be at any city. And usually and right now with stability, like in Camas is a prime example of good stability. I think the city of Renton is a prime example of it. And you can look at Bellevue. And if that's working for you, I'm all on it. The professional management is the real key.
Why didn't Battleground, because it would have been easier.
Yeah, the mayor was
Just to
elected.
hire a city administrator.
Yeah, we
rather than
offered
all
that. The mayor was in first year. We offered it to him. I'm trying to try out at 94. I took office. 95 I started. So it was after his first year. My rule of thumb is you give everybody 6 months. I kind of learn things, dive into it, get a feel of the terrain, personalities. And, I met with Marvin Brothers, and, he was a great old man, nothing personal, but was he ready to run a city that was growing rapidly? No. Hey, we'll hire someone, we'll put it in the budget. No, I'm not gonna hire, because that's up to him. We could put it in the budget, but he didn't have to hire anyone. And so we were looking at, we had a stormwater issue along the railroad tracks, we had the sewer issue, the rates, and there's others. And he just wasn't, there was actually a petition to turn our water and sewer system, our water system, which wasn't the one in big trouble, over to CPU. And we worked those together. Wow, sewer rates are even gonna go higher, and he was supporting that. And before we do something, let's really look at this. And no, I'm not gonna hire someone. So we had 2.5 years, and I don't think the city could wait. Like, we had 1,000, lots coming in. Development was just mushrooming, and it really put the city manager in the, he was behind the 8 ball. He really had to he really had to catch up. And, Kelso has it, Longview has it. I was just looking at the cities I went and visited. Vancouver, Vernon Stoner, the city manager, came out to us and did a workshop with the mayor and us at the old oak tree, and trying to get him to see what professional management. He just was not. We reached out to him. So, maybe I'm here more of an advocate of the professional, management is really key. And I know some cities do give more authority to the city administrators, the charter cities do. Connie Jo.
Back to Sherwood, what form of government are they?
Manager form, I'm
Okay.
almost pretty sure. I'm almost sure of it. And it's just talking to people and seeing what works and making a decision. We moved pretty quickly because we had to. And it was an off election year. But that was because we put it in November ballot, there was no council members up for that election. So I don't know if you're asking that or not. But I'll drop this off to the clerk, and, the rates and bringing things under control were really important, bringing our tax rates down. And we did have to raise some utility taxes at the time, later on through the city manager, because it just for cost. But if you look at our rates and even utility taxes, I do some comparisons with the Cedars. You've probably read this. Annexation's really easy, and they're opposed, and I can't figure it out. When they say it's more taxes, but we have a multiplier on the sewer, and you take the multiplier out, and you take the property taxes, it's a win, even with your utility taxes, because they have CPU water. And they're still gonna be less, but they like the county, and I have no, and I'll put it right on here, I'm not planning to annex the Cedars. They think I'm the big annexation tornado. I have no plans for it. But the golf course is now in the city, and some of the vacant land next to it, which could be developed into nice homes.
Strategic,
Yeah.
Other questions for Bill?
Are you teaching summer school?
Yes.
When does that start?
July 9th.
Uh-oh.
So I put my number on here.
Thank
I got my email, so if, I mean, you go through this and, you know, and it seems like you have a number of citizens that have views and interest, and we had a group that was opposed to it, and, you know, that you gotta make your arguments, and you'll know with the research if you're ready to go forward or not.
Thank you so much.
Can I ask you one last question? What was
Sure.
the length of time where this issue was first floated before it was actually on the ballot?
It actually went pretty quick. Went to the AWC, and who's ever AWC to me, I don't go as much, the new members go, because I've been to, I think I could do a presentation, maybe this is my selling point, over there. I'd go over there for a day or two. I went over to the AWC, it was in the Tri-Cities where it was, and I met I went to cities that had it, and one was City of Puyallup, and I met with the mayor. He was an educator, and was telling me how, you know, they have the manager form of government, and how the, you know, the terms that the mayor serves, and I didn't know we could put it into our bylaws to limit, and that's with your article we were on there about limiting, and you can do that. And I mean, that's something we should have, because the mayor is a representative of the council. And that's sometimes a hard concept, because he is not a strong mayor, or she is not a strong mayor. Mayor Walter is our first female mayor in Battleground. But that's it. It went probably in the spring, so I can say 94 or 95 started seeing the issue, started looking at it. 96 starting to do the research, council members talking to the other council, because it was going to take, to get a petition, get the council to vote, brought it back to them, and I think you'll see it in here, it was in the summer, and then we put it right onto the ballot. So it did move quickly. I think the longer you study, the longer things take place, and I'll say CRC real quick, because it just takes forever, because times change. In 5 years, things change. 2 years, times change. I think you're looking at another growth spurt coming, and you know, but I don't know. I don't know what, you know, is happening in Battleground or, you know, Washougal, but, you know, Clark County is a great place to live. All the cities.
So Bill, you did all this just in a few months?
Mm-hmm.
It was on the ballot?
Yeah, the council, yeah, and then we form, once the council votes, then we formed a committee, and you'll see that's it. And you have to write the pro and con, you form the committee, and the council, you will set up the you know, just like what we did, Connie Jo, at C-Tran, you know, the ballots, the pros and the cons. And you have to get out, you really have to have the passion, and you know, a little bit of curiosity, because we were in a position, what can we do? And then came the passion to do the change. And some people have said, you know, and I try, and I want to keep it personalities out, because a lot of good people say, oh, well, you ran because of the mayor. And, you know, that's why you won. That's why you had 65% yes. I tried never to run on the mayor. But, you know, but it did come up. And that, yeah, it probably was a factor in that. And so we went as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Because we needed to. We start looking at these rates, man. Oh, and
Had to do something.
yeah. We had to, because we had petitions to get rid of the water system, and we were worried because of the sewer and water, the public, you know, workers, the employees and things. And some people would take other actions. And I believe you guys are also, the city is also initiative city too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are too. It was really unique, I think, Camas, Washougal, one of the.
Yeah, there is an option to elect the mayor separately in the
Yes,
RCWs. Have you looked at that in Battleground?
Yes, no, you know, why I didn't do that in Battleground when I looked at it, and I shouldn't say, I did a lot of the research on it, so people kind of looked at me for that. I shouldn't say we, I'm bad. Yeah, in Vancouver, it used to be every 2 years, and that was a charter, and then they went to 4.
Right.
When you elect a mayor, I think it makes it look like a strong mayor.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought with electing the mayor within the council, we would work as a team. And I always believe teams are strong. and especially in these growing cities. That's why. And I still am opposed to electing it separately.
Except that I think it gives the
Yeah.
person the focal point of leadership. I mean, he's not gonna be involved in running the sewer plant, but
Right.
he's gonna be
And that,
as a
and that
focal
could,
point
you
of
could, yeah,
leadership.
and that could be your choice too. And I just, it just, when I was the mayor, a week mayor, it's a lot of work, even being a week mayor. I did it for 2 terms, and I only said I was gonna do it for 2. I had no desire, and with my full-time job, it was still a lot of work. And I enjoy being on council. I enjoy government. I've always said I'd run. As long as I'm teaching, I thought I may retire a few years ago, but I couldn't, and I need to stay on education on running one more time. And because I really do, we have a great council members. I enjoy going to meetings, and you're always going to have problems. And I like to think that we've got a pretty good system, and I think other cities too, with the administrators do too. But it just worked for us. And read through those, and it's fun. I had a good time reading, looking back. It brought back some memories that I forgot over time. Because it was a long time ago.
Bill, thank you
Thank
again.
you, Bill.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you very much.
And I will just hand this, if you want to look at that. And there's one mistake I found as I was reviewing that. I should call Liz on that. But, and that's because that was kind of the rule. Council want to get our rates down. And that is coming together, and the city manager worked on that. Okay, thank you.
All right.
And call me too.
Thank you.
And anybody else at all?
Given that it's 6:20, if council is okay with it, we prep Councilman Greenlee that we may come to him during the regular meeting to try the remote participation and do some discussion about council rules regarding remote participation. Or is council fine if we go ahead and
Sure.
move off of that one for a moment, go back to the public, and
Yeah.
then we'll wrap up by 6:30?
Sounds good.
Okay, individuals, are there folks, Larry, let's see, are there any folks who want to comment to council who have not had an opportunity yet to comment to council? Okay, Larry, you're up.
Oh, there's one.
No one?
There's one
Mike.
behind Bill there. I can't see. Right behind Bill, there's a gentleman
Mike-
with his
Mike
hand up.
Norris.
Mike?
Hi, Mike Norris, 2241 G Street. For anybody that thinks that, at least in my opinion, anybody that thinks that this move to a council-run managed government here, all they have to do is look at Clark County government. There you have a vote from the majority of the Clark County commissioners to hire a political hack that wasn't qualified for the job, or it seems he wasn't qualified for the job, to run a major department in the county. I mean, the same thing could happen in the city. The city council could say, hey, this is the guy we want. We voted for him, and there he is. And you know, and even under our mayor, the city administrator, we had $100,000 go missing, right under his nose. You know, we had supposedly professional, competent administrator at the time. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mike. Rick?
Foot went to sleep, sorry. I just had a couple of thoughts while the presentations were being made. Having come from business and being an executive in a medical equipment manufacturing company, and retired now, I don't think a city should be run like a business. Business is run for profit for the benefit of the people who run it. City should be run for the benefit of the community, all the members of the community, for the long term. Of course, best practices of business should be applied when it comes to bidding, interviewing, different things of that sort. I think there's some advantages to having someone who is not totally dependent upon their wages to run the community. Part-time, strong mayor is an advantage. Sorry, I'm nervous. I think it's an advantage because that person's going to be there because the only reason I can think they can be there is because they're passionate about the direction of the community. And rather than having someone that's there to build their career and use Washougal for a stepping stone to move on possibly to a larger city with a bigger wage and more benefits. So there was another point I wanted to make. It's also, I like the idea of having a person who's accountable, that's elected by the community. And I saw there it said on one of the charts, separation of politics from administration. To me, that's separation from the public to how the government is run. Politics is, you know, the mayor in this city serves at the pleasure of the community. And so politics is a big part and a good reason for that person to be responsive to the community. Without that, the decisions might not be made in the best interest of the community. That's some of my thoughts on it, and I thank you for giving me the time to speak.
Thank you again, Larry. Harvey?
Very quick, Mayor. 3903 R Street. I read in the Columbian, the editorial about going to city manager. So I went to my trusty Apple, and I'm a terrible computer operator, but I typed in RCW city manager. Gee whiz, information just flowed right on down. Then I typed in RCW mayor, and came the duties and the responsibilities of the mayor, but it had nothing to do with qualifications. Then I typed in RCW city administrator, and up popped, can't find anything in RCW. And underneath of that was all kinds of stuff about city manager. So we have now in Washougal a strong mayor who, when he was elected, had the opportunity to hire a city administrator, which I understand from ordinance, it was enacted that we have a city administrator in Washougal. Well, having no qualifications necessary in RCW, apparently they are necessary in the city code. Trust me if I'm wrong, Mr. Scott, but I understand you had no experience in being a city administrator when you came out and applied for a job. The mayor has no experience running a city, no qualifications. So the mayor appoints the city administrator. City administrator is responsible only to the mayor. Every 4 years we can vote the mayor out, and the new mayor could put in a new city administrator. The city council is split. Every 2 years we have either a 4-person election or a 3-person election. And if we have a city manager form of government, the people, if they're unhappy, and the citizenry, they can vote out either the 4 people or the 3 people and get a majority that would favor getting rid of that manager and putting in somebody that they would approve of for that. As far as moving on to other cities, the first administrator we had left. Why? I don't know. Maybe it was a better job, a better salary. Maybe he was unhappy with the mayor that he worked for. City managers, they move, sure. You show me one person that's really highly qualified that, given the opportunity to upgrade their salary or their potential, won't take that opportunity. Anyway, I'm all done. Appreciate it. Oh, this is the exception to the rule right here. Trust me. This man, this particular person brought Camas up into the 28th century with his leadership and guidance to the mayor and the council there at Camas. Just take a look at the growth Camas has, and I give this man credit for the majority of that growth that's happened.
Thank you, Harvey.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, unfortunately, we are at 6:30, and we will take a break until 7 o'clock and come back to regular session. If there are folks in the audience who would still like to make comment right at the top of the meeting in the regular meeting, we do have another opportunity for the public to address council as well. So grab a few minutes, grab a little water, something to eat close by. We'll be back here at 7 o'clock.